All right, welcome back. And welcome back, Josh.
Hey, man. Yeah, it's good to be back.
Today's topic is going to be around diets, and this is going to be a fun one. So there's a lot to unpack here, but, Josh is a personal trainer for a number of years. Myself, I wrestled for 15 years. So we are not dietitians. We are really just coming together to get a little bit closer to the truth and a better mindset around the diet, right? There's a lot of misinformation around there, a lot of different groups, so to speak, that you can get yourself involved with. And what we notice is that there tends to be a little bit of a desire to find the quick fix.
Oh yeah.
Things that fit into a box. We like things that can organize really well. So if it works well for you, it must work well for me. There's a group think mentality, which is what we were talking about at the top of the or just before the podcast today. So it's almost where there's like the we're right, you're wrong, us versus them.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And it's a terrible argument to get into because we are not biologically the same. We don't come from the same origins.
Yep.
So that's a dangerous place to get into. But what we hope to do is to get closer to the truth and a better mindset. So if you go out and look at information on the internet right now, you're going to find the answer that fits your narrative, right? That's the way that the internet works. Mm-hmm. So it's designed and it will circle itself around the answer that you're looking for. That's the way the internet works.
Oh yeah.
So it's easy to find the answer that you're looking for. But the internet doesn't care about your health, right? So there's this mentality that if I go and find my group and it works well for them, it will work well for me.
Yeah. I mean, you go and look at keto diet for 20 minutes. How many keto ads are you going to get on your phone for the next week?
Exactly.
I mean, it's built to do that. I mean, just to support what you're saying there. That's what it's for.
Yeah. It's designed to be personal to you.
Mm-hmm. What they think is you.
Yeah, right. Like a model of you, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Not what you call it, not an emoticon, but something else. Anyway, so that is a never before representation of a person, which is you. Mm-hmm. So how can we replicate that, right? There also needs to be a pretty clear distinction between what is really aggressive marketing and advertising, right? So it's really easy to look at things and think, oh, this is healthy. It's got the right labels. It says the thing on the label. It's got the right colors. That's aggressive marketing, right? Everything in the supermarket is designed to. It's a market.
Yep.
It's there to make a profit. It's there to sell you products. It also doesn't care about your health. Mm-hmm. So there needs to be a distinction between what is actually good and also what is good for you. And also what is designed to get me to buy a product, right? So we just need to be able to read and understand ingredients better,
yep.
Know where they come from, get closer to the source. Before the internet, unless you actually sat down to read what was all in your food, who had the time to actually do that?
Yeah.
Well, producers now have to abide by better policies because now it's the information's at our fingertips. Yeah. We can find out. You're laughing, but
no, it's good. That's a good thing, right? If you hold their feet to the fire.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's no more like that's what what they were able to get away with, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yeah.
Specifically with a low fat diet, but now that this is all out there to read, they need to abide by them because there's nowhere to run and hide. Mm-hmm. So the other thing too is we just need to have a better understanding of how those things affect our body. So when I eat this is what happens, right? There needs to be an attention to the feedback that your body's giving you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're mindless eaters. That's something that I'm guilty of. We're in a hurry.
Yep.
Right. But usually the more restrictive a diet is, the more or less likely, that you're able to sustain it.
Mm-hmm. And to cheat on it and to binge. And it's very hard for our bodies to make those drastic changes and take those things away. And then, you're sitting around one day and you're like, I have to have pizza or I am going to lose my mind.
Yep.
Right. And then you see people go, okay, I'll have 2 pieces. And then the next thing you know, the whole pizza's gone.
It's a landslide.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, but you're exactly right. I'm glad you mentioned that, because your body's telling you something, and yet you'll ignore that response or that feedback that it's giving you, and you'll continue to move in a different direction away from what your body's trying to tell you. It's a problem. So the goal here is threefold, right? We want to learn how our body reacts to the food that we're eating. That's unique to me. It would be unique to you. We need to develop a better relationship with food. So when we understand where it comes from, how it was treated, where it's sourced, the conditions in which it was sourced in, we'll actually pay more if we understand that. We'll savor it more. We're willing to spend the extra money. So, and the last thing too is to get closer to our food source, to eliminate the middleman in any way that you see. I want to ask you a question. So when you were doing personal training, or even when you work with the patients that you see, diet's got to be probably one of the hardest topics to talk with them about.
It's hard because it's actually so easy, right? There's this misconception that eating healthy is very complicated, right? It's got to be this really deep, complicated process, and there's no way it can just be lean meats and vegetables and, finding, what works for you and cutting it down to very few food groups. People they don't understand. It doesn't make sense to them, right? Because it's meant to be confusing for people.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
So it's like, no, it's pretty easy to eat healthy. It's not a very complicated process, and people almost just refuse to believe that it's that way. So yeah, it's the biggest hurdle to get over. Our emotional connection to food, our stress response, how we run to food to help with stress is huge. It's important because when you're already stressed, your hormones are already out of whack. And when we're stressed every day, all day long, it messes with our body's internal homeostasis, if you will.
Yeah.
So our body gets put in a position that's not meant to be in. And then we go and eat, and then it messes with our hormones even more, puts us in a state to store fat instead of use it for energy. And it just, that cycle perpetuates, and things kind of go off the rails for people. And then they have a hard time finding that balance again, because when they do make the change, like we said, you feel terrible for those first, 3 to 5 to even, 2 weeks sometimes, depending on what you're coming out of and what you're going into.
It's almost there's almost a stubbornness to want to adapt and change, and I think it's the mental block that people are having, which, oh my God, that sounds like a huge mountain. I'm never going to get there.
Yeah.
So they talk themselves out of it, where it's just like, if you think of it just like investing, because it's no different.
It's really not. No, it's very true.
Yeah. So I'm not going to become a millionaire by tomorrow. I'm not going to have a 6-pack, or I'm not going to run a 5-minute mile by tomorrow.
Yep.
But if I did a little bit each day, and over the long term, that would really serve me well. That's really the better mindset to have.
It's true. And if we could get people to relate to their bodies, kind of like they do to their long-term money investments, it's actually, if we can get them to understand that,
right,
it would probably make more sense to them. But nobody wants that, right? Because we live in such an instant gratification society, and even with money, people want it. They want it now. They don't want to do the work to do it, right? They don't want to put in the grind. You see these people who are super successful, right? Oh, here's a 47-year-old guy who made $1 million. Like, yeah, you think he made $1 million in 2 weeks? That dude was grinding for 15 years to make that $1 million, right?
Right, yeah.
So our Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram society, it skews our view and our reality of what that is. You see the guy or gal who's in very, very good shape. They're healthy. They look good. Well, I want that now. It's like, all right, you just talk to that person. They've been training 15 years straight for that.
Right.
They look that way because they've been training forever.
Right.
So, but that doesn't sell. Right.
They could have been genetically predisposed to that.
Sure. But you see people who are very, very fit, right?
Yeah.
Who can get very, very fat, right? You still got to do the work. You still got to take care of yourself, just like with your investing, right? You still got to you got to do your 401k. You got to invest well. You got to get with people that you trust to give you the right advice, to do the right things, right? So I think it's just a great comparison. If you could line it up for people that way to understand, like, you want to retire when you're 65, right? Yeah, great. Well, these are the steps you got to take to do it. You want to be healthy and fit in a year. these are the steps you got to take to do it. Just a little bit every day.
Yeah, the more radical. I mean, and to make the distinction even clearer, the more radical investing that you do, the more risk that you take.
Yep.
So the more radical that your diet is, or the framework, if it's pretty radical, if you're eliminating entire food groups, or if you're trying to do it in a really short amount of time, yes, you may get some instant results. You may experience some backlash, but the sustainability is really what you're after, right? Yep. The growth and sustainability over the long term.
Yeah, right? and I think the elimination diet standpoint, I think it's important to say that like it's not. There is a place for them, right? And that's when you're trying to figure out like health-wise what's going on. Like my stomach hurts all the time. I've got diarrhea or constipation. I'm always fatigued. Then it's okay to say, we're going to do some short-term elimination. You take something out, I feel a whole lot better.
Right.
Perfect. That was probably why you weren't feeling very good. So it's appropriate for a short period of time just to learn more about your body. Not an appropriate thing to do for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, right? Because first of all, it's probably pretty hard to sustain that for that long anyway.
Right.
But as a fad, it's not. I think for specifically for health reasons, for the way that you feel, it's probably okay for a pretty short period of time, a couple weeks, right? Dropping certain food groups to find out if that was the issue. Nope, that wasn't the issue. I still feel like crap. Well, let's try dropping this and adding that back in. But yeah, I think people think like the whole, what's the big one? The whole 30? Is that a big elimination diet? Gosh.
Yeah. You're getting into like some culture stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Because we kind of touched on that. Yeah.
Yeah, because people they sew their identity to, okay, I'm this is my flag in the dirt. This is who I am, and it's like, dude, you should just the goal. Apart from what I mentioned before, is if you can figure out what works well for you and eating healthy and feeling good and all your energy levels, A, B, C, whatever it is, you've won.
Yeah.
And at no point in winning should you be like criticizing other groups and what works well or what doesn't for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll be interested. Hopefully we can touch on kind of what works for you versus what kind of works for me when I'm eating healthy and dieting, and how we'll kind of maybe make that something that people can kind of see what that looks like in real practice. How what it looks like when we shop for what works for our body, how we plan our diet around when we exercise and training, and how it affects. I mean, because there's plenty of stuff that you can do. Like I can show data of my sleep, my heart rates. I can track weight and everything. Like I can see how all that my biometrics change with my diet and exercise. That might be an interesting project. I wonder if our guy Adam would be on board for that. Just more work on his plate.
Adam is our AV guy.
Shout out to him, by the way.
Yeah, for sure. This is his highly talented cat. So, and I'll add to that I bet that if I ate the same diet as you did in a 2-week frame and we looked at my metrics, they wouldn't be the same as yours.
No, probably not.
Right. So why would I use your framework as thinking that would be the diet that would fit for me?
It's interesting. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
It's an interesting mindset. It's a very I don't know. I value the individual, so it's very interesting to me that people think like, oh yeah, worked for these 14 people. It's going to work for me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Give it a shot, right? I'm not against trying stuff. I think that's also another caveat we should out there. Like I'm not against trying something, but if you are noticing that you are not feeling good, your energy's low, you're having GI problems, like probably time to step away.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
all right. So the first one is going to be, we're going to get into like the different types of diets, and we'll illustrate kind of, some of the ingredients and we'll break each one down, some of the most common ones. But the first couple of things I wanted to talk about was oils. So barring anything in the produce aisle, most of all the food that we have has some kind of plant oil in it. We're talking corn, canola, cottonseed, palm oil, rapeseed, safflower, sesame oil, soybeans, sunflower. All those, it's vegetable oil, right? It's got to be great. Okay, well, the idea here is to understand again where it comes from and how it was treated, right?
Yeah. So quickly explain why this is your first touch point. Why are oils important?
Yeah. So, like I said, if outside of produce, they're
for the body.
Yeah.
Like, why is that important for people to understand the difference between these kind of vegetable oils and then the oils that we think that they should be consuming?
Yeah. So the way that those oils that I've just laid out, so again, corn, canola, cottonseed, palm, all those are highly processed, highly refined, They're GMO, which means that they are genetically modified organisms.
We don't know what they're going to do to your body.
Right. Made in a lab. So they're
Yep.
not made naturally. They were made by somebody in a coat with a test tube.
Yep.
So let's not be eating that if we can avoid it.
I mean, think about, what was it, like trans fat?
Yeah.
That was made in the lab,
Mm-hmm.
and we found it drastically increases your chance of dying from your diet because it worsens heart disease, it increases cholesterol, all so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
And they quickly got rid of that stuff.
Yep.
So sorry to interrupt you.
No. You're good. So they're highly processed, highly refined. They're genetically modified. They also use a chemical or a gas, hexane, to extract the oil from the plant. Right, so hexane is what they use in biofuel, or they make biofuel from that.
Yeah, I use that in my organic chemistry lab, I think, and we couldn't. It had to be done in the hood,
Right.
so you're not supposed to breathe or touch it.
Exactly. So I mean, and I defy anybody listening, and you'd find it at my house too. I'm not innocent. I'm just bringing you the information. I defy you to find products that are at your house that don't have one of those oils that's listed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it's expeller pressed, that's better. If it's organic, it's even better. Organic expeller pressed, great. But just don't ignore the fact that like that's an inflammatory substance, hexane, that you're ingesting at a mass level.
And you mean inflammatory by you put a lighter on it, it explodes.
Exactly.
Right? Not it's going to cause inflammation within your body. I want to make sure people understand.
Yeah.
So, but equally bad.
Yeah. So there are 3 which we've talked about, which are actually really good.
Yeah.
So they're heart healthy.
Mm-hmm.
They have brain benefits, skin benefits, joint benefits.
Yep.
Really good for your hair, your skin, your nails.
Mm-hmm.
Avocado oil. That's one that you really
I
like.
love avocado oil.
Right.
Don't love avocados too much, but I love the avocado. It's
Is it
really
a
it's interesting.
Is it a texture?
It's a texture thing.
Yeah.
We won't get into that. My wife would listen to this and be like, "Oh, here we go again." We've had that conversation 100 times.
My mom's the same way. She has a problem with avocados. It's a texture thing.
But I
for
taste
her.
it if you put it in a taco or something, I wouldn't.
Like guac,
I
you're
wouldn't
good
say
with
anything.
that?
I could eat it, right?
Right.
It's just kind of got to get over the. Anyways, move on.
No,
move on.
sure, you're good. You're good. So avocado is great. The other thing that's really good about avocado oil is it's got a high smoke point. So people that like to maybe pan fry, or if they like to deep fry, it's gonna be a little bit more expensive. Well, heart healthy, it's got those MCTs in there. It's also flavorless, right? And then coconut oil, that's another one.
Mm-hmm.
That's in all your suntan products. Well, maybe you want to fry with that one.
Yep.
Maybe that would be a good one to use instead of like your corn oil or your any other vegetable oils, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then the last one is going to be extra virgin olive oil. So that one's always a guarantee. I think that's pretty common, right?
It's a good one, yeah. And I think one of the things about oils that's important that people need to understand is that they're everywhere. But the 3 that you just listed, they are very healthy fats for our body. They're all the health benefits you mentioned for it. So when we are looking at diets and examining those things, and we talk about like, yeah, you should have plenty of fat in your diet for people who are going to do those. These are the types of fats we're talking about. Don't rely on the vegetable oils. Rely on your avocados, your coconuts, your extra virgin olive oil, because they taste really good. They're easy to use, and they're healthy for you. I mean, you could throw a rock on the internet and find data to support that they are healthy for you.
Right. Yeah. So the next segment here is going to be around, GMO organic, right? So those are two things that I think get people kind of worked up and confused.
Yeah.
Right. What's GMO? What's non-GMO? What's organic? What's all that? So I'll just break down each one, and simplify it as best as I can. So non-GMO, first of all, it's regulated by a 501c3 in Washington, I believe. And I don't think that the testing measures are ongoing. I think it's just kind of an initial, like you get the sticker.
The certified, is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay, the people who certify something as non-GMO.
Yeah.
Gotcha,
So what it is, I mean, they're genetically modified organisms. So back to what you mentioned about it's in a test tube or it's in a lab.
Yeah.
Right. So, or if the products are meat or eggs or any kind of dairy, that means, and we'll use a cow, for example, that means that the feed that they ate was not genetically modified in any way, if it's non-GMO. So if the statement is true that we are what we eat, if the cow ate genetically modified material to produce X result, and then we ate the cow, well, then if we are what we eat, then we've also eaten a genetically modified organic material.
Yeah.
Or not organic material, but
some byproduct of it within the tissues. Yeah, I fully agree with that. Yeah.
It doesn't exist in natural space. It's not something our bodies are really
know how to metabolize.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't know what to do with it. Right. So when you see that sticker, it's compliant with that non-GMO standard.
Yeah.
And there isn't really that rigorous a testing.
I was going to say, have you found the process that they use, and is it compared to another process of verifying that? Do you know?
Where the distinction, I think a lot of people get confused is, okay, if it's non-GMO, is it organic? Or if it's organic, is it also non-GMO?
Well, no, my question is like, so, when you test something, there's a gold standard test for something, right? But there's also other tests that you can do on that. Are there other tests to verify that something is non-GMO? Or are these kind of the only guys in the room that are like, well, yeah, this is our test? We're like, has anybody challenged that test? Do you know?
Yeah. Like the ongoing testing, I think it at least from what I understand, it falls a little bit shorter than what's government regulated with organic. So when you get that non-GMO sticker, it was tested, and I don't know if it was tested on an ongoing basis.
Okay.
I think that there's less of that than there is when it is organic, because that is a government regulated. It is really strict. It is ongoing testing. It's really expensive to get that So if you see the USDA green organic sticker, that shit's worth it.
Gotcha.
Like that. That's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
And it's also the government regulated. So say what you want about the government. It's like those are really strict standards.
Okay. Yeah.
GMOs, I mean, I work for a 501c3, so I'm not going to like bash on them, but like how much restriction or regulation could they actually have?
Yeah. What's the oversight? Yeah.
Right. So in terms of like challenging that or testing against that, that's not my competency. So I could be.
No, I just didn't. It was a question if you knew or if you had seen anything else on it. So I just wasn't sure.
Yeah,
because I don't know anything about that.
Sure. The other thing that's with organic, so that's ran by the government. So they have strict guidelines in place, ongoing testing. Like I said, it's very expensive to get that label. Is not just they approved it. It's like it's very expensive. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
They also care, and they also have standards about the way that which crops and animals are treated, and critters are treated. So specifically around the crops, it's the pesticides. So the big thing with organic, and this is going to freak a lot of people out, but the big thing with organic, and this is why it's more expensive, specifically with the pesticides. Well, let me first list growth hormones. They're regulating so that your food is not, there's no growth hormones put into the critters that you're eating.
So why would they use growth hormones?
So that they could get a desired processed amount.
A bigger yield, yeah. So
Exactly.
I just want people to understand that they pump the animals full of steroids and growth hormones, so you get a 500-pound cow instead of a 250-pound cow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So when do you think that it was established that they were not able to put hormones into food? Growth hormones.
I have no idea.
So that was first abolished in the 70s.
Oh, wow. So a while ago.
When you see something on the label that says that there are no hormones in your food, they haven't been able to do that since the 70s. So again, that's a marketing gimmick. That's like, there's no hormones in my food. Maybe I'll just buy it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you need to pay a little bit more close attention. So growth hormones, that was first abolished in the 70s. The big thing, and this is going to shock a lot of people, is the pesticides. So you're a homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever used the product Roundup before?
No, I mean, you see the lawsuits about it all the time. So I actually to avoid it because of that. Yeah.
Right.
But I know it. Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah.
So, but you when you have weeds or things that you want to get rid of, you know what.
Yeah, spray it with something. Yeah, I don't know.
And usually by tomorrow, that
those
thing
things are dead and gone. Yeah.
So the active ingredient in Roundup is called glyphosate.
Yep. Well, so I know about that because from just when I was going through school, these organic toxic. So people who ingest them or somebody who's exposed to them through their skin, right? It's an emergency situation. They are very sick when people come in with that. So I do know that they're freaking terrible for humans.
Oh, so this is experiences when people have actually ingested it.
Well, if you're a farmer out there and you get sprayed by that stuff,
Right.
I mean, it absorbs into your skin, and those, I mean, that's life and death. It's in our emergency medicine textbooks, critical care textbooks on how to manage these patients, what you got to do. It's a big deal when people get exposed to that stuff.
Okay.
In large amounts, yeah.
Really glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Because conventionally grown crops, this is why it's $1 or $2 more to buy the green sticker. Oh, no, it's organic. I'm not going to buy it. Okay. Well, conventionally grown crops, conventionally grown fruits, vegetables, produce, they score high in glyphosate levels.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So the strawberries, the strawberries that are at $2.99, they look great.
Mm.
And then I have the organic strawberries that are $3.99. I know it's an extra $1, but the ones that are $2.99, they're going to score higher in glyphosate levels. And you just said that when people ingest that stuff, when it gets into their skin, they have a horrible reaction to it.
Yeah, if you get enough on it, it can kill you. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's likely. I mean, Roundup. I think the lawsuits are for cancer. Like, yeah. So.
Yeah. So that those are the two things to know about organic. I mean, it can be pretty daunting to understand that, but like the reality is that like they're growing them with pesticides, they're being sprayed with pesticides, and you're eating that.
Yeah.
The last thing about the glyphosate too is that when it comes to like bread or oats specifically, like they use it as a desiccant, meaning, okay, I actually have it now, and instead of letting it dry out naturally, I'm going to spray it with Roundup so that it dries out quicker.
Yeah.
And then, i.e., gets to the shelf faster, makes me more money faster.
Yeah. I did not know that.
Yeah. So
organic goats it is? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I would say, yeah.
You can say yes.
Because
you can give it a hard yes, too.
Yes. I'm not certified, but like, again, like I mentioned before, all this stuff is at our fingertips. We can read about it now.
Yeah, you're well informed. Yeah.
Conventional oats score high in glyphosates. And the way that they get it to the shelf faster to make more money faster, because it's a market, is to spray it with that chemical. I'll pass.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to get into some individual diets.
Yeah, and I think it was good to head that off to say, like, this is not just about, like, this is how you should eat, but this is kind of like our goal is for people to be healthy, not lean, right? But, like, we want people knowing that they can find foods that are good for them, that are healthy for their bodies, and aren't going to have consequences. Right. Long-term exposure to that. I mean, I don't have data on it, but does it cause an increase in GI cancers? Does it cause? I don't know, but if I can, take the risk, no. If I don't have to, right? Who knows? But I guess I wanted to touch on that to make sure that people understand that's why we went into the organics and the non-GMOs and why that's important within your diet versus just grabbing stuff off the shelf as you see it.
Yeah, exactly. Because those are a couple of categories that really spread themselves across all foods, regardless of the diet that you're eating.
Yep.
So take that as your highest point to understand, and then it'll make things easier to understand when you get into the diet specifically. So do you follow one moderately or aggressively in your own personal life?
Like when I do, when I'm diet conscious and I eat clean, I would say it probably falls more in line with like a paleo. The keto is one that I probably couldn't sustain because I like to eat too much protein. I know it's like a moderate to kind of lower end protein type diet and high fat. I'm very generalizing. We'll dig into it, but the paleo, more meat based, vegetables, fruits, a little bit of carbohydrates is much more. My body feels better on that.
Right.
Definitely feels better on that.
Yeah. So the first one, this is going to be very relevant because it's something that we see a lot in marketing, advertising. It's the catchword is keto, right?
Yep.
So that's short for ketogenic diet, which has made a lot of prominence, not least because it does work for people that want to lose weight pretty fast.
Yeah.
But it's also really helpful, or has been shown to be really helpful for patients or people who have epilepsy.
Yeah, I was reading that. Yeah, I did see that. It showed reduced epileptic seizures.
Right.
I did see that, yeah.
So when no synthetics would work and when every other diet wouldn't work, I mean, diet wasn't even the first first line of defense when everything else synthetic wasn't work. It was actually a ketogenic diet that would actually work.
Yeah, and I think there's been some data that shows that intermittent fasting has some positive outcomes in that too.
Yep,
so
exactly right. So a ketogenic diet is a high fat, low carb diet, right? So, and really what it is that your body's using its fat as an energy source.
Yep, through ketosis, which basically means when you deplete the carbohydrates in your body has to rely on another source of energy, which fat is very good at that. And when we talk about calories, right, that's just kind of the amount of heat it takes to burn off the energy or to ignite the energy, if you will, kind of like a different octane of gas. Fat per gram, 9 calories per gram. Carbohydrate is 4 calories per gram. Same with protein, is 4. So fat is a very energy dense nutrient, right? So it actually, people think they kind of feel they get that, referred to as the keto flu when they start it, but then they feel pretty energetic because fat has so much stored energy in it, and we can use it pretty well and utilize it through kind of this, it's a relatively complicated biochemical process where the cells kind of convert different things and form ketones, which are a good source for energy.
Right. So it's high fat, it's low carb. So it's going to be, from a produce perspective, it's going to be your raspberries, blackberries, strawberries. That's that. There, you could do more, but like you're going to be flirting with more carbs.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Vegetables, if it's green, it's good to go. Pretty much across the board there. Meats, I think it's pretty straightforward if it's high fat. So beef, chicken, game, lamb, pork, bacon, sausage, fatty fishes, most seafoods. With dairy, it's going to be butter, ghee, heavy cream, eggs. I mean, it sounds fantastic.
Yeah. No milk, by the way. The milk is very high in lactose and sugar. No go on that.
Right.
No go on the milk.
So is that for like lactose intolerance or?
No, because the sugar.
Yeah.
Lactose. But if you just grab like a jug of milk, there's a pretty decent amount of sugar on it. But that's why you get your heavy whipping cream and your butters, and you do your bulletproof type coffees and stuff like that. You can use that because it's fat versus sugar to give it the flavor.
Right.
Yeah.
So, if anybody's lactose intolerant, they could still eat the like the Parm crisps.
Mm-hmm.
Those are really popular because doesn't the lactose get eaten in that process? So they're drying it out.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. But most of the time, lactose intolerant people are pretty sensitive to any dairy. Well, because dairy can sometimes be a broad term, but any lactose-based product would give people some trouble. Cheeses, milks, even butter, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not 100% sure on that.
Then some of the fats that avocado oil, coconut butter, coconut oil, some of those oils that we mentioned before, and then good snacks. So beef jerky, parm crisp, pork rinds, which I'm not a fan of. Not that you had to know that, but those are so terrible.
Yeah, they are not appetizing. And the beef jerky, you got to make sure you get like the low sugar beef jerky. It's
Right.
more of a salty than it is that sweet that you can find. That sweet beef jerky is actually has a lot of sugar in it. So
yep. And you could apply the same thing. So you can buy how many different kinds of almonds?
a couple hundred. Yeah, I mean, I can buy some nice sugary, cinnamon coated almonds that I can eat until my eyeballs bug out of my head. But my blood sugar's through the roof. And why am I getting fat eating all these tasty almonds? I don't get.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, with the snack, so high fat nuts, almonds, Brazil nuts, macadamia nuts, pecans, pili nuts. Ketogenic diets are great. And I think if people want to lose a lot of weight fast, I think they see a lot of really good results. If you're getting your butt in the gym on that diet over the long term and you're looking for results, what's going to happen to their energy levels and what's going to happen to them?
It gets tough, right? Because your carbohydrates are such a big source of energy for your body. So a lot of the times what people on keto diets will do is they'll just have ketones ready to go. So let's talk about how the brain functions really quick. It is one of the biggest consumers of your energy throughout the day. I'm a neuroscience major, so I can talk about some of this stuff. So
humble brag.
Yeah, no. So when I was in undergrad, we talked about this. Like your brain at rest, when you're just sitting there dumb to the world, is consuming, it's something like 40% of the energy in your body from all the little sodium potassium channels, all these different neurons that are firing all the time. Your brain is soaking up carbohydrates all the time. So like when you say, remember when you were in college and you study for like 5 hours straight and then you just be wiped, done. Well, your body, and you just have to like, gosh, I got to like drink that Mountain Dew and eat those cookies. I got to eat food because your brain is saying, I need the sugar. You want to function? You better give me something right now. So when you deplete that and you're not converting ketones quickly enough, you'll see people crash hard. They'll get real tired. They'll feel kind of dumb. They'll be slow to respond. You pop them with some ketones, like a ketone drink, and their brain just like lights up because it's all that energy to them. So if you're lacking that, and that's not a sustainable thing to do, right? You can't just sit there and drink ketones all day because then you're never using the ketones that your body is producing. It's only kind of a break glass type thing, an emergency break glass. Yeah. So it's not a sustainable thing to just supplement with ketone drink all the time. But if you're ignoring that, yeah, I mean, your body can't recover. Your body requires glucose to stores in your muscles to function better. Now you can, it's one of those things where people do it well and they look good and they sustain it, but it's almost it's kind of an all-consuming diet in a way. It's really one of those things. I think people that do it there's like podcasts dedicated to just doing the ketogenic diet. Yeah. And so it just, I don't know. I don't want to trash any of these things because I know it doesn't work for me. I've tried it and I wasn't successful on it. So but I'm not going to say don't do it. But at some point you got to like, man, if you're training and doing like, you run, right? I mean, like if you run long distances, you got to have some carbs in your diet, right. Especially in the middle of like a 10K, or if you're doing a half, like you got to have something. Mm-hmm. So I think it gets a little tricky there, especially for people who aren't ready to dive into that all the way and be very, very well researched and learn and educated on the diet itself.
I tried it for about a month and I made a concerted effort to it. Yep. And I found out that it was just like you said, it was almost more than a part-time job.
Yeah.
The goal here is okay, I want to get a better relationship with food. I don't want it to be my life. Mm-hmm. I want it to help my life and I want it to improve my life. I don't want it to become my life.
Yeah. Because there's very few people who should do that, right?
Yeah.
Bodybuilders, endurance athletes that are getting paid to do that, those are the people that should be like, I have to spend a good 25% of my day planning and making sure my diet is spot on, right? Elite level athletes who they make their living through their body. Mm-hmm. But guys like you and I, right? Like I just can't do that. I mean, some people, I think eventually you just kind of fall into it, but like, I don't even know if I've got the time in my life to make that big of a change and to constantly have to invest time and energy into doing that. And my wife tried it too, and she filmed the same thing. Like and it feels restrictive too, right?
Yes.
For some people, because if you do have some carbs and you get out of ketosis, it takes time to get back into it, right? And there's some people, again, I'm not trying to trash it, but I don't want to walk down that line of this works for everybody, because some people, like once they're in ketosis, they feel amazing and they do really, really well on it. The only way to do that is just to try it.
Yeah, the idea should be to work smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
Shouldn't consume your everyday.
Yeah.
So the next thing that we're going to talk about here is paleo, which is short for Paleolithic. So this is trying to eat like we did as hunters and gatherers, mm-hmm. right? So it's natural. It's either grown here. It's from the earth.
Yep.
Me personally, I think it would be fair to say that I do a 25% ketogenic diet, mm-hmm. 75% paleo.
Yep.
And sometimes it might vary a little bit. That's what has worked well for me. So again, this is going to be avoiding anything that's processed, avoiding the middleman at all costs.
Yep.
So meat, fish, eggs, vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, herbs, spices, healthy fats and oils, avoiding processed foods, sugar, soft drinks, grains. If you're going to eat grains, you should make them count.
Yeah. Organic oatmeal.
Yeah.
And I think a really easy way to put this to people is if you can't pull it out of the ground or pick it up a tree from a carb standpoint, don't eat it.
Right.
Stupid simple, right? People are like, I don't get that. But it's true. If you think about it, bread, nope, don't eat that, right? Cereals, all those types of things. Like if you can't pull that thing out of the ground or pull it off of a tree, shouldn't be eaten. That's kind of the paleo diet. If you can't kill it and cook it and eat it,
right?
That's it's kind of what it is. That's a hunter-gatherer mentality, and that's how they survived. And that's the very simple way to look at it. Now, I mean, we'll dig into that. So,
yeah, it's the process stuff that we're trying to avoid. The middleman, all the production of it, right?
Yep.
So, you mentioned the thing with the grains. I think with bread, like, you can go to the market and you can grab those like really heavy loaves of like oat, nut, seed breads.
Yeah.
If you're going to eat grains, you should make them count, because when your body digests those, there's nutritional value in those seeds, in those nuts.
Yep.
You can get something from them.
Yeah, I think there was a study done a few years ago, and one of the big conclusions is one of the big problems with the American diet is that it's not necessarily, I mean, it is what we eat, but it's a lot of what we don't eat. And we are very deficient seeds and nuts, big time. That was one of the big conclusions they found on that. So,
yeah, the artificial sweeteners. So if it's artificially or naturally flavored, that's another chemical. That's another fancy word for like it was built in a lab.
Yeah. How do you feel about stevia?
Stevia is good. Yeah. Stevia, monk fruit's great.
I've never tried that before.
Stevia and monk fruit are the two that people should go after.
I'll have to go after. I'll have to try that monk fruit. I've always been a stevia, tomato guy.
Monk fruit doesn't have as sweet. Stevia is actually sweeter
than sugar. Yeah.
Yeah. Than monk fruit. Monk fruit's a little bit dialed back, but those are the two really good options.
I'll check that out.
Anything like, aspartame or those sweeteners or any of that stuff, that's not good for you.
Yep.
I mean, it's those chemicals that when they process this stuff, it's made with chemicals that are not designed just to taste good. They're designed to go after triggers and things in your brain.
Yeah.
So that you'll eat more, so that you'll buy more. It's a biochemical thing.
Right. So there is a really strong connection between like your taste buds and your brain and body being sated, right? So when you do drink, the joke is always like, how many skinny people do you see drinking Diet Coke, right? Because when you do drink a Diet Coke that's loaded with aspartame or these kind of fake sugars, like your brain is saying, okay, I'm getting that sweet response, but I'm not getting any nutritional value from it. You got to give me something, like I got to have something else, right? So that's when they eat the chips or they eat something else, because the brain is sensing like, okay, I'm sensing from my taste buds, I'm tasting something sweet, but I'm not getting a blood sugar response from it.
Right.
So again, pop is not good, but if you give people like little 8 ounce of Coke, they're probably not gonna, I mean, if they're, in somewhat of a healthy mindset from a diet standpoint, they're probably not gonna go nuts and eat a bunch more food on top of that, because they're going, okay, I got the sugar, my brain tasted the sugar, and then I got the blood sugar spike. My body was able to respond to it. My brain got that glucose that it wants. Now we can move on with our day. But if you're like, oh, I need a little energy, I drink a pop, I want the caffeine. Your brain's going, yeah, I don't need caffeine, I need sugar. And that's when you get the big binge after that.
Now, I know that you've heard this before, but when people try to give up pop, specifically diet pop, they talk about the fact that they're having massive headaches.
Yeah, the caffeine.
So that totally validates
sugar, caffeine, man. That response is it's rough, and it's quite drastic, and people are pretty miserable, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it doesn't mean that it'll stay there, but that's your body's, just what you're talking about, the same processes.
It's a withdrawal process. I mean, it's withdrawal.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just say it what it is. It's withdrawal.
Yeah. So I'm going to take an opportunity here to talk about the sugars. So we've been talking about your brain's reaction to sugars. When you're reading a label, it's going to have, fats. Your serving size is going to have your fats, sat fats. It's going to have sodium. It's going to have it'll have total sugar, and then it'll have added sugars. Total sugars is just where it's naturally.
Yep.
It's a natural. So like an apple has a total sugar amount.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Do you ever see no added sugars in a pop?
No.
It's all added sugar, 100% added sugar.
And if it's not actual cane sugar, it was something ending in ose.
Yeah.
That is actually just redesigned and renamed, but it's actually sugar.
Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just it's so the way that it's named based off of its chemical structure, right? How many carbons and whatever, and it changes the type of glucose, some whatever, right? A different sugar has just it's just a longer chain, right? So that's what changes the name in it. But at the end of the day, right, the old thing that people used to do is they take a potato and chew on it, and the enzymes in the mouth will break it down. Everything you put into your body, every carbohydrate, everything eventually ends up as glucose, right? So they chew on a potato, And then they'd say, okay, wait, keep chewing on it. And then it would get really sweet because glucose is sweet.
Right.
So the enzymes in the mouth would break it down into glucose. So it's very interesting that, again, my point is supporting what you're saying, is that all those different oses are just going to be sugar at some point.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's just how fast it turns into it.
Right. So, if we change the name on it, maybe they won't know.
Yeah.
Right.
It's exactly
still the same thing.
Yeah. They don't know what the hell it is. People don't know what. I mean, they're not supposed to. That's not the guy who's mowing my lawn. It's not his job to know what that is. Right. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to add something here about added sugars, which is the next line down. So it's going to have total sugars. And apple's got, I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but it's going to have 16 grams of total sugar. Now the added sugar is what we actually really need to pay attention to. So for example, let's say that you have a snack that you really like. It's a trail mix. You think it's healthy, whatever. And in a cup of it, it has, let's say 16 grams of added sugar. You're thinking, okay, that's kind of a lot, but like, to illustrate that even more clearly, 4 grams of added sugar is the equivalent of a teaspoon of white cane sugar. So in that cup of trail mix that you had, it would be the same thing as taking 4 teaspoons of white cane sugar and then throwing it down your gullet.
Yeah.
So I don't care who you are, like that right there should just be enough to tell you that like the added sugar is the thing on the label that you should really be mindful of.
Yep. And I think the important thing that people should understand about the way that sugar works in our body is we ingest it, right? And then our blood sugar spikes.
Yep.
Right. In our body, that's not a bad thing, right? You eat a meal, your blood sugar goes up, your body will utilize that for energy. When you get a big old spike from a bunch of sugar, your body uses insulin and uses other metabolic processes to use that for good, right? Well, in the excess, the insulin sweeps it away. But at some point, the body goes, okay, I've used all this for my muscles and for my brain. Now I got X amount just hanging out. Well, it's energy. What can I do with that energy? What do you think the body does with the excess sugar that
converts it to fat?
100%. Yeah. So that's what the body does. So I got those energy. Well, I'm going to store this for later. You know what? I'm going to put it right in your gut, and I'm going to put it in your ass, and I'm going to put it in your hips, right? So it's like, that's why when you control people's blood sugars with their diet, they will lose weight. All of them will, because it's not spiking and dipping, and you're not getting the ups and downs. And keto's great for that. Paleo is really good for that. Like that's what these diets are really good for, is for controlling your blood sugar levels with the proper healthy foods that your body needs to function.
Yeah. The bread thing was that reminded me of like when you see refined wheat. Thinking, oh, it's wheat bread. It's like, okay. What they did was they took a whole wheat and they removed the germ. They removed the all the really good fiber.
Yep.
They took it out, and so that you were left with what? Just the simple carb.
Yeah.
So it's wheat bread. You maybe paid a good price for it, but it's going to spike your blood sugar.
Yep.
Then they pumped a bunch of fake fiber back into it that was mechanically or genetically or messed with in a lab. And if they brought the fiber down low enough, or they added a lot of fiber so that you could, from a macro standpoint, label it keto, then that's the direction that they would go.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things about the true blue keto people, right? They are having a paleo approach, right? They're picking their stuff off the tree and they're pulling it out of the ground. That's how they're getting whatever they're eating. But then, the mass marketing comes in and they go, oh yeah, get this keto thing. And I was reading some of these keto labels and I'm like, okay, so it has 14 grams of sugar, which is about the max you can have on the keto diet. But these are sugar alcohols. What the hell is that? Like, I don't understand. I still can't wrap my head around how that makes it. And then it's got 4 grams of fiber, so it's a net zero carbohydrates. I'm like, am I supposed to believe that? Because this thing really does taste like a Reese's peanut butter cup when I eat it. So it's very I think real people who are on real legit keto diets aren't eating that stuff,
right?
The Atkins or the Kellogg's keto.
Oh, it's a fat bomb. Should buy this.
What the hell is that? What is that?
Yeah, see, it's a marketing gimmick, is what it is.
Yeah.
So, the next thing that we're going to get into, this is going to be one of the last ones here, is vegetarian. Now, there are layers, as with a lot of the things that we've covered here. There are different layers, but vegetarian is abstaining from meat and fish. That's just at a very base level. Now you can get into like, I avoid dairy. I avoid
eggs,
fish and poultry,
the byproducts of the animal. Yeah.
Right. So the big one, and this isn't going to surprise anybody, is the vegan.
Yep.
Right. So this is, you don't even use animal products at all, and you also don't use any byproducts.
Yep.
So like even if your chapstick has anything that came from something that had eyes, at any time you don't use it.
Yep. Yeah, it's a lifestyle. It's not a diet. This is very much a lifestyle. Right. I did do not that serious, but I did do vegan for a month once.
Now, it can be very good for a cleanse. So like if you're trying to like get things going, and maybe keto is not the direction that you go, but if you want to do a cleanse, you want to kind of do a level reset. Actually, a short-term vegan stint's not a bad direction.
Yeah.
The problem that we see, or the things that you and I have talked about, is that lifestyle becomes identity, and then you get the carnivores, and then you get the vegans, and they're right, we're wrong, us versus them. It's like there's this whole.
I'll take the carnivores in that fight.
Yeah, exactly. But there seems to be this mindset where it's like, okay, I don't want to have anything bad happen to the animals. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want that, right? Yep. But that's a little bit extreme, because there are essential vitamins and nutrients, minerals that come from animal products that are vital to the human body.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So like, and specifically for women, I would say, you know, we were talking about before the show, it's like, okay, if you have your cycle once a month, you're losing blood. If you're not eating animal products, specifically beef, but beyond that, how are you replenishing that?
Yeah. Where's your iron stores coming from? I mean, you do see, I mean, you know, I think as the vegan kind of community grows, they do understand that they do need to supplement with certain vitamins and minerals, but like you could pull that from your diet with very little amount of meat. But the old school people who weren't doing that, I mean, those people were coming in, they'd go to their doctor and they'd look very sick. And
they look gray.
Yeah, their labs would be all screwed up. Their blood counts would be down. I mean, it throws your body very out of whack if you don't manage the micronutrients, as people like to use in these days, properly. I mean, if you're just going to eat a vegan diet and you're not going to supplement with the vitamins and minerals that your body needs that you get from your foods, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, and when you see that if they're like really married to the diet, if it's just like their identity, right? They have all these results. They turn gray. They lose the color in their face. Yeah. They start to kind of lose their hair a little bit.
Yeah, hair thins out. Yeah.
Yeah,
because you're lacking these very vital nutrients and minerals that your body very, very much needs, man.
Yeah, and you see with parents, they're like, okay, no, my kid's vegan. It's like, wow. I mean, is that really the play? I mean, I don't want to say that it's right or wrong, but like, I don't know, just from like when you're growing and you need those things, maybe those are not things that we should be taking away.
I think that's also part of it, but I think those types of things, specifically going to like a kid's mind, I mean, like that can really screw a kid. I mean, like, yeah, my parents, I had a cheeseburger, but then they go off to college and they're like, it's in and out every night, man. Right. Like, I mean, they're going to go the complete opposite way.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but sometimes, I mean, kids, you restrict them and you hold them down, you don't introduce them to things, and they just, once they get that taste of freedom, they go completely off the rails, right? And then the parents are like, oh, I'm a failure of a parent. I'm like, well, you just let your kid have a cheeseburger once in a while, maybe, you know.
You can avoid a lot of that resentment by trying to not impose your beliefs, which have been around for 20 years because you've had time to flush them out.
Yeah.
Impose them on a blank slate, on a growing blank slate.
Yeah.
I just don't think that that's the right approach.
I agree. I fully agree. I mean, I think at some point, I mean, they're just like you and I, right? They're an independent mind that's going to make their own decision at some point in their life, whether you like it or not, because of what your belief structure is. It's a different conversation, right? But I just think that, I agree with you. I don't think that's a good thing or a healthy thing.
If you care about the environment, which we should all, that's a great.
Which, by the way, there's not a lot of people you won't find that care about the environment more than like true like hunters. They are very, very, very in tune with the environment and the way the world is, and like how they know that their role actually is very important in the way the structure of the hierarchy of animals, and how if you don't lower animal populations in a certain way, it'll destroy that specific place. Like if you talk to guys who are really into hunting, you'd be surprised at how in tune and well, they are very well educated on how the world works from an environmental standpoint, from a nature standpoint, how that's important. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a really good point.
If you haven't looked into that, man, you should. It's really cool. I think Rogan talks about that a little bit, and I mean, you'll see states, parks, and stuff being like, "Hey, we need a little more deer hunting because these things are starting to take." And it's really interesting. It's a really interesting side note to that. So
that's a really good point to add, because you do get a lot of the lifestyle and we care about the environment, we care about the animals. That's fantastic, and to your point, there's a necessity to that.
Yeah.
But beyond that, when you're trying to supplement the things that you know that you need, that we talked about it before, that your body's telling you that you need.
Yeah.
Just to have dinner, you have 12 products. They all come in packages. So that took processing, that took package, that took plastic, that took shipping, that took
fuel.
All this processing just so that you could get. It's like maybe kind of just you should just eat the meat, because if you care about the environment, look at all these packages and products that, for all intents and purposes, have a good chance of ending up at the landfill.
Maybe the ocean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just I think that we'll end it there.
Yeah, I think we're getting a little long. So yeah,
we are, but hopefully we've distilled down some of the misinformation and some of the myths. Again, we're not experts, but we're trying to make it a little easier, try to help you read between the lines.
Yeah.
So the takeaway here is to pay attention to your body's response to what you're eating, get closer to your food, and have a better understanding of where things come from, the sources.
Yeah, and I think now I think there's kind of this very interesting movement of people coming back to, like, you know, the local shop local thing. You can go to butcher shops. There's a butcher shop that I go to. We're in Omaha now, but Council Bluffs, Iowa, it's just right across the river. It's called Rustic Cuts, and I know the guys who own it. I know it's coming from their farm. I know it's processed at their shop, and I know that what I'm looking at is not that old, and I know the process that they do it with. I mean, it's fantastic, man. I highly recommend anybody who's from this region to go visit Rustic Cuts over there in Council Bluffs. Man, their meat's delicious. It looks great. It tastes great. It's not oversized. It's worth it. It's worth the trip.
And you don't mindlessly eat that steak when you cook it. You can't.
I kind of do. It makes me pretty happy.
Well, you're just not shoveling it down. It's like, you know, and especially if you grew that critter.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's an interest. It's a different flavor, man.
Yes.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Like, like you get people who give them a grass-fed steak. They are like, well, it's a little different. It's like, it's a grass-fed animal versus but it's, I'd check out Rustic Cuts. So
awesome.
Little plug for those guys.
That's a good cut. All right, that's going to do it for us, fellas. Thank you so much for listening, and reach out with any questions you have. That's going to do it for us today. Cheers.
Yeah. Later. All right, thanks for tuning into the episode, guys. We appreciate you listening. Do us a favor. If you would hit the like button below and subscribe, you can also hit the little bell. That'll send you a notification when we post a new episode. In addition, if you have any questions, concerns, or comments, shoot us an email at hosts, that's plural, HOSTS, at menexplainpodcast.com, or go check out menexplainpodcast.com. Do us a favor, just share this with anybody you think that they would like it. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll catch you next time.